People of the state of Michigan versus Willie James Jr. Motion for a new trial and amendment of judgment that you filed. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Counsel, he did this in pro per?
That is correct, Your Honor. The signature on both the motion itself and the certificate of service that Mr. James signed indicated as much.
A Michigan courtroom prepares for one of the most important hearings in this murder case. Before sentencing begins, the judge first addresses the defendant's request for a new trial. However, after reviewing the claims, the court quickly makes it clear that those arguments will not change the outcome.
Well, that would support that position. We'd ask that that request be denied.
Request is denied.
Threat to security of penal institution or interference with the administration of justice. It is currently scored at 0 points. We are requesting that this be scored for 10 points for the offender otherwise interfering with or attempting to interfere with the administration of justice directly or indirectly violating a personal protection order. Your Honor, in this case, the record is rife with the defendant's interference with the administration of justice. Even if we look at the conduct of lying to the police in multiple interviews and misleading the police in multiple interviews, and even if we simply look at cleaning up the vehicle to remove bloodstains from it to deter police in their investigation, that would sufficiently score 10 points for OB-19, but understanding that the jury found this defendant culpable, guilty for this homicide, getting rid of Mr. Watson's body would be the ultimate act of interference with the administration of justice. So for those reasons, we ask that 10 points be scored for OB-19, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm opposing that request, and I believe it's properly scored where it is. Certainly, the Department of Corrections in preparing this report would have been familiar, I think, with the facts as they were presented at trial or the facts as alleged.
OB-19 is properly scored at 10.
Your Honor, thank you. That will change the currently scored offense variable range from 65 to 100. That will ultimately change the range from an F2 to an F3, 365 months to 600 months on the minimum or a minimum range of 30 to 50 years.
The judge rejects every argument raised by the defense, explaining that there was no evidence of prosecutorial or juror misconduct during the trial. Even the defendant's request for additional jail credit is denied because the law simply doesn't support it.
Never want to meet a person like that.
We are asking that the amount of that restitution be held in abeyance pending the cost of funeral or celebration of life. As the pre-sentence report indicates, they have been waiting to conduct those services based on the outcome of the criminal trial. So we ask that restitution be ordered and that the amount be held in abeyance. No legitimate rehabilitative potential. At 57 years old, this defendant has now amassed his 17th criminal conviction, 10 felonies and 7 misdemeanors. The defendant has served 2 lengthy terms in the Department of Corrections, and neither of them have rehabilitated him or educated him or helped him develop any empathy. And it turned homicidal in 1998 when this defendant was convicted in another state of second-degree murder and second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon. And we ask this court to consider for a moment, Your Honor, what does it mean when a defendant has murdered not just one person in his lifetime, but 2 people? A defendant who has already served a 10-year commitment in the Department of Corrections for murder in another state, then waits another 10 years and murders somebody in our community. I want you to think about that. Most people go through their life, Your Honor, managing not to murder anybody, let alone 2 people. And if they have the good fortune to be released and to get out of one murder conviction after a lengthy term of incarceration to come back into our community and commit another homicide, that indicates to us, Your Honor, that this is an unrehabilitatable, violent, and homicidal individual that stands before you. In fact, in 2018, this defendant was convicted of assault with intent to do great bodily harm and felony firearm in connection with shooting his girlfriend. Your Honor, he served another lengthy prison term in the Michigan Department of Corrections, and he was on parole at the time he murdered Andrew Watson. Think about that for a moment. And that then leads us to the instant offense. We want the court to consider some of the facts of this case. Consider, Your Honor, how much blood was inside of that vehicle. blood that had soaked into the seats and all the way down into the rails of the front passenger seat, blood that had soaked into the back carpet so densely that the defendant had to remove that carpet to avoid detection, blood that was so soaked and throughout that vehicle even after 2 professional cleanings. And what does that tell us, Your Honor? That this is a massive homicidal, lethal event that this defendant with a prior murder conviction perpetrated on this man inside of his car. And after that, Your Honor, as Ms. Watson so accurately said here today, the defendant then disposed of Andrew Watson's body. And we want you to think about for a moment, Your Honor, consider what it means to actually dispose of a whole human being. We have cases pending that have gone through the Ingham County Circuit Court in the last month where we see what happens when people are caught disposing of bodies. We see what that really looks like. But just because we don't have Andrew's remains, don't forget what that means to dispose of a whole human being such that he has vanished off the face of the earth for 5 years after an intense investigation. So this defendant is violent, he is homicidal, he is antisocial, he is an extreme risk of danger to our community. To deter this conduct, to protect others from this repeat offender, the defendant must be sentenced to a lengthy term in the Michigan Department of Corrections. Given the defendant's age, Your Honor, his parole status, it is the people's position that the defendant should be sentenced to a term of incarceration in the Michigan Department of Corrections of no less than 35 years on the minimum sentence. And that again takes into consideration his age. If he was 20 years old, we'd be asking for every day of 50 years. But given his age, at least 35 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections will ensure that he remains there essentially for the rest of his natural life. Thank you.
Attention then turns to sentencing guidelines. Prosecutors argue that the defendant actively interfered with the investigation by misleading police and attempting to destroy evidence. According to the state, those actions justify a harsher sentence under Michigan sentencing rules.
Your history says it all, as does these actions, as does the mountain of evidence against you, sir. While you maintain your innocence, it is not to be believed. It is incredible testimony, as we say, which is not to be believed. The amount of blood, the amount of effort you went through to hide your crime, cleaning the car, not once, but twice. Disposing of an entire human being without a trace, that takes some planning and forethought. That takes some knowledge. You have the history. Your second homicide. And in between that, a lot of violent crimes. You haven't learned your lesson. This court does not believe that you will ever be rehabilitated in this lifetime. We cannot tolerate any more gun violence in this community over anything, unless it's self-defense, and there is absolutely no evidence that what you did was done in self-defense. And you hid the body from the family. I hope that in the years that come, as you are locked up, you find it in your heart to reveal to the family where their loved one is. They deserve that. And it is only a cold-hearted, inhumane person who will continue to hide their loved one from.
The courtroom grows emotional as the victim's mother addresses a judge. She describes the years of pain her family has endured without knowing where her son's body is. Her statement focuses not only on the loss of her child, but also on a lasting trauma caused by never receiving closure.